everyone for being here. We're here for the in the structures track. The project we're talking about today is Greenup County, Kentucky 244 bridge over US 23 and the CSX Railroad. Just a couple things before I announce who's going to be speaking today. I'm Mike McGregor with Bank of Farmer Works and Engineering, and I'll be moderating this section and the session and the next session. I wanted to remind everyone to fill out their evaluations on the app. Please do so. It's important for the purposes of future partnering conferences. Also, I wanted to remind everyone, and I think there's signs posted, but I'll be honest, I didn't read them when I came in here, but they told me I should remind everyone that, like, in between the sessions and breaks and all that stuff, we're recording. So just be cognizant of a hot mic situation. So with that, we'll go ahead and get kicked off. So the presenters today are Michael Reed, Mitch Thomas, and Craig Klusman. In the interest of time, we're not reading all the bios, but again, go to your app and please read about the presenters from this session and other sessions to learn about their history and experience. And with that, who's getting that? Mitch, go for it.
It's a new experience for me with this microphone. I feel like a DJ sitting up here, so we'll try to listen to some music here in a second. All right, let me try to get rid of this video. So, once again, I'm Mitch Thomas with AECOM. Isn't that a cool picture there? I mean, you got the Go Big Blue girders and everything looking over the Ohio River and so on. So, I think that's really cool there. But this is Kentucky 244 in Russell, Kentucky, Greenup County. I guess just by show of hands, has anybody been to downtown Russell, Kentucky before? So a lot of people familiar with this, great. And then, you know, one of the things with this project, it goes over US 23 Country Music Highway. And we have a virtual prize for everybody out there at home and everybody in this room. Can you tell me a famous singer from Greenup County? Don't make me sing, I will. So we'll get you a virtual prize to virtually win anything. Anybody? Dolly Parton. No. Oh my, AP Break Your Heart. Y'all don't remember that? They're right side. All right. Here we go. See if this works. There we go. All right. So real quick, do some introductions. So I guess some key personnel that's worked on this project over the years. We can't mention everybody out there that's worked on this. It's quite a lot of people. You know, recognize a couple of people from the district. Rachel Kitchings, Darren Eldridge, Blake, and of course, Michael here is also going to present. For y'all's information, the contractor for this was Triton Construction. They're out of St. Albans, West Virginia. Did a very good job on this. And then our KYTC construction inspectors, Chris and Mike there. As you can see, kind of in the lower picture, at Governor Bashir there in early November for the ribbon cutting, so it's kind of cool to see all that and everything. And had a nice sign there, presentation, Rocky and everybody was there, so it was pretty cool. So as soon as the governor left, like, all of a sudden you got this guy up here, he's facing the sign. You know, the bridge hadn't even opened, and he's already writing on the sign over there. Yeah, he's sitting up here in the front row. But yeah, just a little bit of fun. I thought that sign was pretty cool to show all that, and I think a pretty good presentation to everybody involved with the project. Michael.
Working. Yeah. Okay, so we just want to give you all kind of an overlay of the area, just a lot of stuff going on up there. So as you can see at the top, there's the old Russell Ireton Bridge, and that was actually replaced by the cable stay, the old big pond memorial down there. You can kind of see our bridge that we're replacing there is the 244 viaduct bridge. And then right off to the side of that, which you'll figure out later on with it's at the mountain right there, that's where we ended up with a big rock cut. I say, want to definitely point out the CSX tracks there. I said there's 3 tracks that run through there. They're pretty active. I think they get 30-some trains a day through there. And obviously you got US 23, and then at the top up there, that's actually one of the few other ways in and out of Russell. Like that's kind of your Ferry Street underpass, which is vertically and horizontally deficient, as far as width. Which is what makes this bridge here so much important as far as getting in and out of Russell, because it's the only real way for oversized vehicles of any time, or even trucks of any sort, to get in and out. But
Yeah, because literally here you're between a rock cut and a hard place, river, railroad track, ingress, egress, to get larger vehicles out into downtown Russell. So those 4 key elements, really hit home, doing the project for here, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we go, through here. So, you kind of see that was from 2016, so everything's changed since then. So we were thinking, well, what are we gonna do that? And I happened to go to a yard sale and I found this book. And it said how to do everything. And I thought, oh, okay. And then I looked a little closer. I don't know if you all can see it, but it says how to do just about everything. So I was like, well, I wasted my money at that yard sale. So moving forward, you can see that over there, but you had the Oakley Collins, which was the cable stay structure from ODOT that linked Russell and Ironton up, which replaced the structurally deficient bridge that went to downtown Russell, sorry. And what happened with it is initially way over budget and had to be rebid. And at the time we were URS or AECOM, so St. Craig and all the structure peoples looked back and did some value engineering to knock some cost off of it, like reducing shoulder widths and sidewalks and things like that. So construction ran for a few years, and one of the things that drove this whole project was it was driven by ODOT, and then they tie across to Russell, Kentucky. We call it Russell to Ironton, not vice versa, since we're on the Kentucky side. Was the intersection issues with Kentucky 244, US 23, and a new cable stay structure coming from Ironton, Ohio.
I suppose if you want to look right here in the front of the picture, the bottom of the screen, so that's the new cable stay. You can kind of see the old viaduct bridge right there that Greenup replacing. I say, so it came in and made that, like Mitch was saying, it made a very interesting intersection there. I said, basically a T, but then you throw an extra leg into it. I was saying, then the actual Ohio River Bridge is actually on skew a little bit too. So the lanes really didn't line up much of anything. And then you also got the old Russell Ironton Bridge at the top up there, which isn't there anymore, as you ready to see.
Yeah, so one thing kind of key in on was this crazy intersection here. We've got some good slides to show it, and what happened with it. So some trivia if somebody's scoring at home, and if you want to, win a free lunch or something. It was the first fracture critical structure between here and Parkersburg to Cincinnati. So it's kind of cool. It was there for a long time. And she was officially demoed in 2016. You all believe me? There you go. Oh, wow. So they still wouldn't let me push the button on the dynamite. One of these days, they're going to let me push it. That may be the last day for me. If I'll push it too soon, I'll get it. Michael, you want to take this?
Yeah. I say, so if you look at the big picture there, I say you can kind of see the new intersection that's formed, the new cable stay bridge there. I say, and even at the bottom picture, now you can tell that the traffic has its own phase of the signal there, but I say you really have to come out and around. I mean, it really did not line up the intersection well at all, which is one of the main issues we had with it.
Yeah, because one of the rules for horizontal intersections is 15 degrees skew. I don't even think this was in the ballpark, in the other direction. And one of the things with this, I mean, it's a crazy intersection. We have a different term for it. I'll show you a little bit later. But I mean, you're coming here from 244. If you want to continue to the north on US 23. I mean, it's just severe skew, and every time we went through there, I had no idea if I was going the right way or the wrong way, because you're not even pointed in the wrong direction there. So this was something that we saw that, hey, talking with the district, we need to get this on the books and get this issue resolved before it gets worse. Because obviously, when you have that tremendous skew in the intersection, you're your traffic operation is going to be extremely poor, which we'll talk about a little bit here in a second. So just some of the issues with the bridge at the time, with 244 being, structurally inefficient, the weight limits was pushed way down at that time. The bridge was literally moving over the railroad track. And just all kinds of other things going on. And this section of US 23, it's the highest ADT in District 9. So trying to cross back over 23, which we'll show you saw in the video, and then maintain traffic into and out of downtown Russell. 3MS, trucks, delivery, CSX, and so on. So if you see it there at the bottom, that's a technical term we put there. It's a Bowie local intersection. So by the time you see the sign that says Bienvenidos, Kentucky, you're in the Bowie local intersection and you're going to go crazy. It's what's going to happen eventually.
I suppose say here, just wanted to view from US 23, the old bridge. I say it had 19 spans, and then it's going to show in the next picture more of a close up of the. It had a pin and hanger steel span over top of the railroad. There's actually 3 spans there, I guess, but that was one of the main issues. They couldn't check the pin and hanger and didn't really know. I mean, we had quite a bit of other issues with it too. I say we meant to patch a hole in the deck and ended up pouring 10 yards of concrete. So I said it's kind of fairly rotten. I said it's honestly it's a maintenance headache. I said then another view looking down at it. I said as Mitch mentioned earlier, it was actually moving. I said it's actually a triangular wedge section of it that we ended up actually bolting there and it's actually scooting over. You can see it in the sidewalk, the railing. It's several, maybe 6 inches. I think it's a decent bit. And that's it. It's moving out. I think.
Yeah, it was, many times we were out there on site visits, you could literally feel it with vibrating.
Still stand, you can feel them.
Yeah.
Especially if a truck goes over it, the whole thing bouncing up and down with you.
So some other issues here, just kind of talk about, summarize again. So going forward to final design, we were obviously selected to do that. Myself and Greg led our side up on a consultant in the district. We had Michael, Blake, everybody else, Rachel, Darren, on the district side. So just to run through these preliminary alternatives real quick. So we looked at 7 alternatives. The initial alternative, remember the 4 key things. We got to get people in and out with large trucks to CSX and the local gas stations, be able to maintain traffic and so on. So one of the alternates, we looked at anything and everything because, you're literally in a very tight spot there. You get the river, rock cut, US 23, very active rail and so on. So we just said, all right, let's start from the top here. So this option here just basically put it back in place. But then by doing that, you got to close the roadway. So that kind of, not to tell you what's going to happen, but that didn't work out too well eventually. So there we looked at alternative 2. Michael talked a little bit about this, using the Ferry Street underpass. And it's, you curve through here with the S. We actually met with the Russell EMS, and they even attempted to deflate the tires and tried to go through it, and they still could not get through due to the curvature and the vertical. It just did not work. So that wasn't a good idea. So then we looked at this one, started to get a little crazy on this one. We said, hey, let's go underneath the new cable stay structure and then come back and tie US 23 just to the east of the new bridge. Of course, these drawings are back in preliminary line grade where the cable stay structure was not constructed. So, this was extremely expensive back then, and you're running everything down in the river, and you got to shoot up over the railroad, and your grades just didn't work out too well. But it was an idea. So then we looked at, hey, let's go. Let's find that sweet spot crossing 23, so we can clear the rail, we can clear 23, get our vertical where we want, and then swing back over more of a traditional type intersection here where we straight lane with the new cable structure. It looks pretty on paper, but then, you start doing all the engineering, you're talking about over 1 million yards of cut that affected a water tower and just major impacts with this. So from there, we said, all right, let's look more traditional route. I think everybody here has worked with the railroad companies, and I think years ago, same I was down at E12, I remember a Norfolk Southern guy was there, and he said, why do y'all in such a hurry? He goes, the railroad's tight, the government bureaucracy. And I thought, well, okay, I think I understand what you're saying. So we looked at putting in a at-grade crossing, which used to be there, and CSX quickly denied that, so that alternate was nixed pretty quickly. So then we said, all right, well, we looked at the other one, we straight laid the cable stay structure, so we said, let's look at this. I mean, it's kind of a really weird shape, kind of a gear shape, and try to curve back over to 750. And the reason we did that was for the traffic components. By moving it downstream off the cable stay structure, it improved traffic operations for both intersections with 750 and the cable stay structure. The big negative was the grade back to 750 and trying to kind of get. So we said, all right, let's go back to the drawing board. So Jordan and I looked at this and we said, let's push this out and flatten the grades. We held our same profile over CSX 23, and then by pushing it further to the south in this direction towards 750, we're able to really flatten that grade and then tie down to 750. So we're kind of thinking like, all right, this looks like a home run to me, but then we went from there to the stakeholders.
Well, that's what I say, after we got all our alternates, kind of have pros and cons. Most of them even saw they weren't really feasible necessarily. I said the best option, if you could have closed the road, was to put the bridge right back in place, but they were very concerned with that. The city couldn't get, like Mitch said, they couldn't get their fire trucks, EMS in and out. They're concerned about getting gas trucks in there to the gas station. CSX was concerned with it. It's kind of one of those, the bridge is gonna have to stay open, or they really want to stay open and be able to get in and out throughout construction. So based on that, it kind of, Mitch is gonna tell you here in a minute. So you'll see which alternate we ended up going with, but and I think on the next slide here, you have, I think it's got a map here too, that shows kind of the issues with. So you can kind of see over there, points the bridge out. So you got the Ferry Street underpass there that we talked about already, which is put in horizontally. You couldn't get in and out. The next thing you come toward the top of the screen, well, it's another underpass underneath the CSX rail yard. Still horizontally and efficient, and vertical stuff couldn't get in and out. So in order for them to actually get into Russell with their emergency vehicles, they would have to circle all the way up there to Wortland at the top almost, come all the way around with it, which added a significant amount of drive time to it. I mean, you're talking probably 20 minutes just to get in and out of Russell that way.
So there kind of just did a little foreshadowing earlier. So basically all those previous alternates 1 through 6 were quickly eliminated. And then we went to alternate 7 as preferred, just due to all those issues, minimize rock cut excavation, able to maintain traffic here in construction was a challenge. Craig will talk more about that here in a second. Then kind of just more of the same. It really came down to all 7 versus 6, and said 6 was so steep, and she was eliminated from there. But overall, it just improved everything. It was far and above the best alternate there. And then the other caveat to it was it improved pedestrian linkage in downtown Russell to the neighboring areas. We did some sidewalk projects with the city of Russell, Mayor Simpson there, the avid runner. And, he's tickled to death to see this bridge go from there. So just kind of open up downtown Russell with linkage for running, walking, bike, head, whatever y'all want to do. Here's a quick Google Earth little screenshot of it. We're kind of more of the same. I think the video at the beginning was the truth to be told.
So then once we started into the actual design, I'll say, like Craig's going to talk about more, is a lot of horizontal and vertical just to make sure we keep the clearance over top of the old bridge. We ended up keeping, Craig mentioned, but 12.5 foot. That was a very, well, went back and forth right there with that. And then the representative at the time up there, State Representative Tanya Pullen, we had to explain, well, why do we want to build this option? It costs this much more than we can build it back in place to try to kind of explain ourselves. And then one other important thing is the culvert underneath 23 there was actually plugged up, so we ended up pouring and jacking a 48-inch pipe. It's close to 300 feet. It's a pretty good sized thing.
Yeah, it was originally put in a long time ago. Russell, it was at one time it was a coal pit, and then water, sewer, and everything else was also in the construction with the project by the contractor. So kind of again, just kind of some more high notes with Kentucky 244. Kind of talked all about that things, but Craig's bread and butter, the bridge length is over 1,107 feet. And, we're looking at 250,000 yards over about 1,200 feet or so. And the board jack was pretty cool. Chad and I went down there and saw them do that over that distance. It's one of the longer mooring jacks that we've seen here. And then construction costs around $24 million. And official ribbon cutting. Sorry.
Great. All right, thanks, Mitch. Everybody hear me all right? Good deal. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds though, today. I guess maybe a more technical presentation. Maybe I can get on the bridge day in February and talk about some of the technical aspects of the design. But kind of goes over some high level, some of the things we ran into with the design and some of the challenges. It's definitely a unique structure. It's a curved welded steel plate girder bridge, 8 spans. We designed it in 2 units with a transverse deck joint at Pier 4. And then of course there's also joints at the ends of the abutments on the structure. And the next slide. So Mitch said, 1,100 foot structure length, really tight horizontal radius, 310 feet. And the bridge, the difference in the curvature from where you get on the bridge and off the bridge is 143 degrees. So not quite 180 degrees, but still a substantial change in direction on all of the structure. The typical section is 2 traffic lanes and 2 shoulders. Shoulders 4 feet, is that right? You call?
That's 8.
8 feet, okay. And then we have a sidewalk too on the structure and type 3 barrier wall. And some chain link mesh over the US 23 and railroad. We designed using MDX software for the structural design, and we verified the results in CSX Bridge. Next slide.
Yeah, one of the things too, the curvature didn't touch on it, but since this linked to downtown Russell as an urban street, we treated this as a low-speed urban street type design, geometrically 25 mile per hour normal crown. You're not going to get much out of there. Say if you want to go 60 miles an hour, it doesn't make much sense because you have to stop anyway.
That's right. Yeah, I mentioned the dot speed. Yeah, it's mentioned. So we'll view the profile of the bridge. We selected to use PAL supported foundations. With the exception of 11-1, or excuse me, 11-2 rather, which is found in the rock. As you can see here, it's a little faint at the right end of the bridge. It crosses over the existing 244 Belmonte Street, the CSX Railroad, and US 23. We had plenty of clearance over the railroad. I think it's like 38 or 43 feet or something, not ballpark 40 feet. But the big challenge was the crossing over the existing 244, and I'll go into that a little bit later. With the span arrangements here, though, you can see the span 6 is 171 feet, and we had to have that layout to go over both those structures. And we also wanted to minimize that span length too, in order to keep the girder depth down. But one thing that did in span 7, which you can see towards the right, the short span, that span is actually entirely in a negative moment. So that was kind of interesting. One thing I want to point out here, if you see on the previous slide, a couple of those, the bridge kind of goes out right over the river. So it actually, in the 100-year flood situation, piers 1 through 4 are underwater. So we analyzed those piers for the drifting barge for vessel collision loading, just in case there's a situation during flood where a tow got loose and got over there to destruction. They did not have to be analyzed for case 1 with the traveling vessel due to because in normal water, those piers are traveling.
We were doing coordination at that time with the KYTC, and it's like, are you sure you need to do that? And then sure enough, I was telling Sam earlier that about that same time, a barge got loose here in downtown, and he got stuck over here at the Falls of Ohio. It was over there for a long time before they were able to get that out.
So the piers are hammerhead style piers, and we utilize a form line on them. Looks really nice. There's me in the picture there for scale, and you can see the Irons Russell Bridge in the background. I believe this is Pier 3, so this is one of the piers that would be underwater and got a 100-year event. Okay, talk about the little vertical vertical clearance challenge we have here. As you can see in the bottom left graphic, the span 6
traverses both the CSX Railroad and the existing Belafonte Street, Second 244. So we got as close as we could with the pier to the railroad with the requirements. And then on the 244 side, we did the same thing. But we really wanted to minimize that span. So the hammerhead pier, as you can see that bottom right photograph, actually is violated the existing barrier wall on the existing bridge. I may or may not have been driving when I took that photo. So ignore the reflection there. But yeah, we accounted for that. We knew it was gonna be tight clearance, but we went ahead and had them close the sidewalk and put that barrier wall up around that so they can remove the barrier wall to obstruct the pier gap. And you know, you top right, you can see it's really, I mean, 12.6, it's not much. We were kind of really crossing our fingers and during construction, nobody would come and hit those brand new girders. But that was my biggest fear, you know, you got this brand new steel up there, it's gonna be hit before it opens the traffic.
And we checked and checked and checked, and then we checked it again, and we checked it again to make sure that vertical clearance was good through there on every little point. I think Chad even questioned us after we did all the checking, but we checked it again. It was tight, so we worked it out. I think Freddie made mention, they did have to take off a piece of the sidewalk through there. But other than that, it worked out all right.
One thing I forgot to mention, the girders are 66 inches deep, the welded steel plate girders. So kind of a little technical slide here, talk about the bearings we utilize. So as I said before, it's two units, right? Unit 1 and Unit 2. And it was primarily, we decided to design the bridge with 2 units opposed to 1 unit to do the bearing that 143-degree change in temperature, 143-degree change in rotation through the structure. Because what we did here, just for Unit 1 as an example, we fixed all the bearings at Pier 2, and then we used a combination of unidirectional bearings and multi-directional bearings at the other substructure units. So the movement, the anticipated movement that you would have from the bearings, which would typically on a straight bridge would just be along the the center of the bridge, but here is actually, if you would draw a cord from the center of, like, say, you can see it best maybe at the far right there at Pier 4. At the center of that to Pier 2, that's the anticipated direction of movement that you're going to have due to temperature lows. So we orientated those unidirectional bearings along that line is the intent. And we utilized disc bearings, which I had photographed in the next slide, Mitch, that we, during construction, there's a disc bearing that was going in the project. And I'm not sure, I didn't get underneath this. I was trying to, we looked at this yesterday, trying to figure out, I think this is either a unidirectional bearing or a multi-directional bearing. No, I'm sorry, it's either a fixed bearing or a multi-directional bearing, because the unidirectional bearings have guides on them that kind of only prevent movement in one direction. Kind of a cool picture here too in the background. You can see there's a girder that's been delivered to the site waiting to be erected in place. Next slide. Speaking of erection, so we had a scheme and the plans for the possible, we did the engineering for a possible erection scheme that the contractor would follow. And it had, you can see there's, I don't know how many steps here, 30 steps or so. It had 6 temporary supports just to prove that there was a constructible way to build the bridge. Of course, contractor didn't decide to use this. He decided to use a different method. And you can go on the next slide, Mitch. So this is I pulled these slides coming up here from the contractor's erection scheme. E.L. Robinson was their contractor's engineer on the project, and where they proposed their erection, which is generally from left to right. And the most critical stages were when they had the one girder in position. Because once they got 2 girders or more girders in position, then they could check the diaphragms and the bridge was more stable. But of course they did an engineering and checked all these different stages. So when they got over to they went ahead and built the span over US 23 on the right, and then they did the final installation was over CSX and the existing 244 bridge. So there's a completed scheme. That's pretty cool. And then here we went out to the site one day and watched them put some sections into place. Here's they've already got the 2 girders. It looks like here they're putting the 3rd girder in place. But what they did, instead of doing temporary supports, they had a series of 2 cranes out there. So when they had this piece here that's in position, they had the guy go ahead and the steel ironworker bolt up that section. And then you show the next slide, Mitch, they brought the next piece in while that first piece is still being supported by the crane. Once that next piece is bolted up and supported, then they can go ahead and release both cranes and the structure is stable. I think there's one more slide, maybe. Yeah, there we go. Showing them put that in, because you can see the diaphragms are already, cross frames are already waiting to be bolted up. And then there's some cross frames there in the ground for future steel erection. Here is one of the iron workers bolting up a splice. It's kind of a fun photo here. And that's kind of it on the detailed structure stuff. And then we've got a lot of construction photos that we'll kind of take team talking about some of these photos as we go through. This first one showing the sidewalk there and the new iron commercial bridge in the background. Another photo showing the piers, the hammerhead piers.
That's also the back of Ford and Jack down through there. You can see the excavator, so it's kind of cool to watch that machine in place. I think somebody said they only broke a couple of bits over that distance through a lot of rock. Pretty good. There you go, another shot of them. And, you know, one of the things on those, the bore pit always gets away from them. It's incredibly deep, 40+ feet deep or so.
Oh, yeah, there's a form liner, not form liner, but the form for the pier columns. So roadway excavation work over there on the opposite side of US 23. First steel setting for span 1 has been completed. This aerial photo. Nice photo here with American flag.
Yeah. Chad, you do the USA.
Really cool photo there showing the roadway excavation. And then there's the first girder over US 23. There's some epoxy coated steel. A lot of steel on this bridge deck. This kind of another photo here, but you can see the curved girders go through there. It's a pretty cool photo. And this one here, we think that this is the sidewalk on the left, and I guess it's still rough here because they left the rougher edge for the sidewalk. They finish the deck. Of course, they'll come back and pour that concrete slab for the sidewalk later. Oh, there's that tight clearance again during construction. Showing it from the deck level, it's really cool. And there's that joint. It was the deck there on the old bridge. It was giving them a lot of problems. Existing bridge. Ribbon cutting with the governor and other dignitaries. There's the sign that Chad was in earlier. Without Chad. A cool photo again from the river.
That's really it. I'll play the video again, and I think we got a few minutes for questions.
Any questions?
So the clearance for the emergency vehicles was, critical to this. So the 12'6" was that enough for the fire truck to get through?
It was.
Accept that.
Question here. Okay.
Question from virtual session is, were there any issues with deconstruction of the existing bridge in regards to the new bridge?
Yeah, the contractor did a scheme to take apart the existing bridge, B-Tech engineering on it because they had that span with the railroad. I don't recall having, I don't recall having any issues taking it out. service.
You know, I've never heard of anything about it. That's what they put their forms underneath. They actually laid them on the bottom planes of the steel sections of those things. Hammered out all the concrete, caught it that way, and then laid down there and took the beams off, but didn't hear of any issues.
They made it look easy. What do y'all think?
Question there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, great. This is no, is this the alternate that we were working on in 2017?
As far as construction,
I mean, this what got built.
yeah, this is what got built out. I can't, when the construction started, was it, you know, that, it's later than that, right?
19, I believe.
I could have finished up in 21.
Yeah.
We were working on it back in 2017.
The design, definitely, yeah. Yeah,
And I was thinking that it was that alternate center.
that's right.
It seemed like there was something that's kind of scary about how many to one of those existing abutments or something like that.
They probably counted, they probably two, they couldn't construct a wing wall, I think, because of the way that flows together. They can tell after they took all that service.
Yeah, they tear all that, but they actually getting there to finish the construction on that part of it.
Well, one thing I forgot to touch on, if you look at the full picture when it's removed, it's like, you know, it looks like it's supposed to have been there all this time, but you know, with the CSX rail running through there, they had, I'm sure y'all run into this before, but they had reversionary rights. I don't know if y'all battled that scenario before. So this was a unique situation where KYTC owned the right of way through the railroad. But then where the railroad right of way approached on a preferred alternative, they had reversionary rights. So it was a lot of back and forth, and sure you all battled those blue maps from 1900, and they said, well, put it on there like the map shows. Well, you know, it's 100 years old. We're trying to put it on there. You know, there's locks and dams that affect right of way, you know, with, you know, surveying with riverbanks and things like that. And so we had to reestablish the reversionary rights for the CSX, and then they got the area with the siding, you kind of see there, the seating. They got that area back. So it's one of those deals, they, back in the day, building all the rails, they really knew how to go about doing those agreements. So once we thought we had the right of way clear in CSX, then that popped back up. So it was, you know, just a lot of, you know, back and forth with CSX. Yes, sir.
So how was it draining? Since you had to jack that pipe through, was it going somewhere else or?
It would basically pond, you know, it was a double, real old double culvert, and then went to a single culvert underneath US 23. Ben Chinneberry, I don't know if he's in here, but he actually crawled down in through there. I was like, golly, you know, if I went through there, first thing I would have ran into the biggest snake ever, because he would have been waiting. But it was clogged, and then Rachel, she met the fire department out there, and they ended up, you know, just pumping a bunch of water through there to try to push it out and clean it out that way. But it was so silted and consolidated, the water just backed up. So US 23 kind of acted as a levee there, and the water would just sort of sit there. And 1 minute left.
Thank y'all, great presentation. Again, a reminder,